wanted to do a video, well, a whole series about PMDD because it's something I've spoken about, and when you're kind of just living on your own, doing your own thing day in, day out, you don't realise the impact that your words can have when you are sharing them online, because obviously you're not seeing everyone who hears your words and getting to know whether what you're saying is actually beneficial or not. But recently I've been having quite a few different messages coming through from people who have watched the video I did over on my other channel with my partner, the Indie Project. And that was all about why I had a hysterectomy. And that was because of PMDD. And I just thought, this is a topic that still needs to be discussed. I think it's really easy for me to forget that it is something that lots of people still don't know about, and it's incredibly misunderstood. So even though I know a lot about it, I experience it, I'm surrounded by people who understand it, and I know others who have it, there's still a lot that needs to be talked about. And it's one of those topics that needs to be talked about. It affects 1 in 20 women who have periods. And even if you don't have periods like me, I no longer have them, but I'm still affected by PMDD. So today I wanted to talk about what PMDD is and how you can figure out if you might have it, because there's some really big clues that do give you insight into, maybe that's the answer to these issues I've been having. PMDD stands for Pre-Menstrual Dysphoric Disorder. It is a condition that affects your brain, most noticeably when your hormone levels are changing. So it's not a hormone balance issue, it's how your brain reacts to your hormone levels changing. Now, this is something that happens if you have a menstrual cycle still. So it will start to kick in when you have periods, and it will continue until you no longer have those hormones going around your body. So as I mentioned, I'm still suffering from PMDD, but not in the same way, because I no longer have any of my female reproductive organs, part of the endocrine system in there. It's all gone. Sucked out, chopped out, pulled out. I don't know what they did, but it's gone. And I'll talk about that maybe in another video, because it's quite a long one. But for now, there is a video on my other channel that you can watch. I'll put a thing. The hormones that play havoc are progesterone and estrogen, and they are the main ones that go up and down throughout your menstrual cycle. I'm not a scientist in regards to this. I do actually have a Bachelor's of Science degree, but it's in animal conservation, absolutely nothing to do with human health. So this is just everything I've learned through research and reading things and talking to others. So with your menstrual cycle, you have the follicular phase, which is the first half, from your period starting to you ovulating, and then you have the luteal phase, which is from ovulation all the way to your period starting, and that's the side that tends to have the more horrific effects in PMDD. So the first stage, which usually lasts between 10 to 14 days, it's quite nice. You feel more like yourself, you can cope better with life, the extreme fatigue is gone, you have a bit more oomph, you actually want to do things. The melancholy you were feeling feels like a distant memory, even though it was just a few days ago. And for me, I knew when the ball was going to turn. Is that a phrase? I knew when the ball was going to go in the other court, whatever. Because I also had endometriosis, which I didn't actually uncover until I had my hysterectomy last year, but I'd suspected something was going on because I had cripplingly painful ovulations. Now, I always thought everyone knew when they ovulate. I always thought everyone could feel ovulation. And some people can, but I don't think that's a necessarily extremely normal thing to be bedbound when you're popping out an egg from your ovary. I mean, it sounds quite painful, but the egg is very tiny. But then so is the ovary anyway. I also have ADHD, so tangents are a thing. So ovulation was cripplingly painful for me, and that was also an indicator that my mind was also going to start to become cripplingly painful. At this stage, the hormone levels are changing, progesterone's entering the picture, and estrogen's going down. Now, progesterone is the devil because you can also be progesterone intolerant, which really heightens up the shitness of it, for use of a better word. PMDD, it's also worth mentioning, affects everyone differently. Some people have much more severe certain symptoms than others. I have never hallucinated as far as I'm aware, whereas others do. Ovulation starts and everything kind of just goes downhill. Depending how long your period is, it's usually 2 weeks for me. Well, it was, not anymore. I would just kind of not be able to cope for those 2 weeks or until my period started. I would hide away in myself. I would feel incredibly depressed. I would feel suicidal. I would want to end my life when there were periods when I tried. And it's incredibly damaging to the people around you as well, for them having to witness it and help you. Then there's a lot of guilt because the way that you're treating people around you can be very snappy, very irritable, argumentative. You can be not yourself. It's kind of like Jekyll and Hyde. And a lot of the things you do and say during that period of time, for me anyway, I can't really remember them when I'm in the good stage. And they also don't feel like that much of a big deal because my moods, behaviours are just switching so fast. A lot of women get misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder because it has the same kind of pattern that you have ups and downs. You have the manic episodes and the depressive episodes. So if you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or I think it used to also be called manic depressive disorder, but you don't feel like you can do anything to get on top of it, might be worth tracking your periods and seeing if your highs and lows are corresponding with your periods. So that's how you can really get to terms with knowing that you have PMDD. Track your symptoms every single day for at least 3 months. You need to do it for 3 months because that'll give you a real clear indicator that there are things happening during those stages of your cycle. And if you can see that every month for the last 3 months, after you've ovulated and before your period, your life has just gone downhill, you've become incredibly depressed, you've become irritable, you've become angry, you've become suicidal, you've withdrawn, you're having real bad physical pains, like your breasts really hurt, your muscles really hurt, you can't sleep, you can't do anything. Yeah, there's just a lot of symptoms that I had forgotten about because it's been 6 months since my last period now, and it's been really nice to not have that constant cycle. That's not to say that I haven't had my own issues because I am on HRT, well, just taking estrogen because I'm 35, so it's a bit young to not have that. It's risky for your bones and all sorts of things. I also have ADHD, and dopamine and estrogen are best buds. So your estrogen can really affect ADHD as you go into menopause or you are in menopause. A lot of women see their ADHD symptoms just become unmanageable, and also a lot of people who didn't know they had ADHD and go into menopause, they can discover they have ADHD then because they just cannot cope anymore. Definitely recommend tracking your periods. It's the easiest way to get an idea that something's going on. Then I would definitely recommend taking the evidence that you have compiled and going to your doctors and talking to them about it. Now, this is a really scary step for a lot of people because doctors can be very dismissive. They're on tight schedules. A lot of them sadly don't know about PMDD. I was super fortunate that because I went to the same doctor as my mom, who has PMDD, and he had helped her with it. He knew about PMDD and was very, very helpful with me and how I could cope with it. So that's something that you definitely need to go to and do if you want to have extra help, because having the diagnosis can mean that you can then get support. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. You can get support for things like if you're struggling at work during those stages, if it's impacting your life in a really negative way, you have evidence to say, look, this is happening because I have this condition and I just need to, I'm getting to grips with it, because there are things you can do to help you cope, but also coping mechanisms can go out the window when you're having a really hard time. PMDD is also exacerbated when stuff is going wrong in your life. If you're having a stressful time, your PMDD symptoms are going to be worse, which is just brilliant because already having a hard time, let's just make it even harder. So if you're pregnant, PMDD symptoms can go because you're no longer having your monthly cycle. I know for my mom, she said that being pregnant was the only time in her life, other than before she started periods, where she felt completely great and like herself again. A lot of people ask about contraception. Can you not take the pill to stop your periods? Won't that help you? The problem with that is a lot of the pill, like I can't take the pill that completely stops periods because I suffer from migraines. So I could only take the progesterone only pill, which just turned me into an absolute monster. So it's a bit risky taking more hormones to combat it because, like I said, PMDD is basically a mood disorder that is affected by your hormones, by estrogen and progesterone, and those are the ones that are used in contraception. So I shy away from that. I've never had a good experience using them, and I've had the depot injection, I've had the progesterone only pill. They were the only ones I could take. I ended up taking the absolute major decision of having everything removed after my last, and I'm sure that's going to be the last one for the rest of my life, attempt on my life last August. That was a real turning point. And I started the ball rolling on having everything taken out. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't like my periods anyway. I never wanted children. They were really painful because I had endometriosis and massive fibroid, and I had PMDD. There was just a whole load of reasons for I was suffering, and there was no need for it because I didn't want children. The biggest drawback to that is obviously jumping off a cliff straight into menopause, because menopause is not to be sniffed at. However, I do feel like, having lived with PMDD for 20 years, more than that, 23 years or something, a lot of my menopausal symptoms have been okay. They really haven't completely annihilated me. I'd say the worst thing was probably the hot sweats. They're just hideous. And because I have ADHD, and I'm not going to be able to remember the term now, but is it sensory issues? Sensory issues. Hot flushes are a sensory issue, so they can be really tough to deal with. I feel a lot of panic when it would come and rush onto me. It was absolutely horrific and really difficult to deal with because I couldn't start estrogen therapy until at least 8 weeks after surgery due to the endometriosis. They removed all of the lesions, but they want all fibroids, whatever they're called. They also removed the fibroid. It was attached to the uterus, but anyway. Tangent. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I didn't start the estrogen until at least 8 weeks after. So I had 8 weeks of no hormones. And then it was starting the hormone therapy. But I'm not going to talk about that today because that's not what this is about. This is about PMDD and what you can do to figure out that you have it. So, like I said, definitely keep a track of your periods. See how you're feeling. I do have a link, I'll put it in the description, to my website where you can download a free tracker and you can print it out or just have it on your phone, whatever you want to do. You can use it. Print it out as many times as you want and add extra symptoms to it, but a list of the common symptoms of PMDD include, so we're going to go through the mental ones first: depression, sadness, irritability, anger, paranoia. I'm going to whip out my iPad and get a list up so I can make sure I have everything in. A really great website, actually, whilst I am browsing and it's not showing up, which is annoying, is IAPMD. I'm just going to put it in the actual search bar. It has everything you could think of about PMDD, IAPMD, and also PME, which is premenstrual exasperation. I thought it was that, but I didn't want to say it in case it was wrong. So they just called me, so I had to stop. But I've got the IAPMD website up, and it is a really good website because it covers lots of different things, and I'm going to read the symptoms out because my brain is a sieve, and even though I have suffered from the symptoms, I don't want to miss anything out, so I'm just going to read them all. I'm going to look down at my iPad. So, symptoms include mood or emotional changes, e.g. mood swings, feeling suddenly sad or tearful, or increased sensitivity to rejection, irritability, anger, or increased interpersonal conflict, depressed mood, feelings of hopelessness, feeling worthless or guilty, anxiety, tension, or feelings of being keyed up or on edge, decreased interest in usual activities like work, school, friends, hobbies, difficulty concentrating, focusing, or thinking. Brain fog is really big. Tiredness or low energy, a lot of fatigue, changes in appetite, food cravings, overeating or binge eating, hypersomnia, which is excessive sleepiness, or insomnia, which is trouble falling or staying asleep, feeling overwhelmed or out of control, and then physical symptoms such as breast tenderness or swelling. I would have, and I would call them bomb breasts, I would sometimes have the biggest, and I'm saying they're painful. It was like, even if my clothes just brushed against the skin, it was like being punched in the tit by Mike Tyson. It was really painful, and sometimes they'd last for months at a time. Absolute brutality. It was horrible. So yes, bomb boobs or swelling, joint or muscle pain, yes, bloating or weight gain, yes. I mean, those are just some of the most common ones. Like I said, it didn't really mention paranoia, I don't think, or hallucinations, but those are most common ones. So if you are noticing those kind of symptoms every single month around a certain time, if you put it in a diary or track it, you can then figure out if it is linked to your period. And if it is, I definitely recommend going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis if you can. And please don't be put off if you speak to your doctor and they're incredibly dismissive, because that's one of the hardest things when it comes to conditions that aren't very well known. You can be dismissed, you can be brushed off, and depending how you're feeling at the time, it can be soul destroying to pluck up the courage and go and talk to someone and seek help and then be dismissed. It hurts, it's horrible, and it can put you off. And I know so many people who have unfortunately been dismissed and have been put off, and you lose the will to fight for yourself. You're already struggling, and to have to push even harder really doesn't feel worth it. But trust me, it is, because you can get that diagnosis. If you feel like your doctor isn't listening to you, see another doctor. Try and speak to someone else. There will be resources to find different people you can talk to. I ended up, even though I had a diagnosis, I paid to have a private consultation with a PMDD specialist who is based in the UK. I do live in Portugal, but he's based in the UK, and I spoke to him on a video call for an hour and had a really deep, in-depth conversation about everything. And he wrote me up a referral letter, which was absolutely fantastic, because I used that when I spoke to the consultant about having surgery, because I did do that all on my own. I didn't go through public healthcare. I did it privately because I wanted to get it done and dusted ASAP. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to get it done, and I did. I went from my final suicide attempt in August 2023 to the complete hysterectomy in November 2023. It was all done in that period of time. If I could have had it done the day after I left hospital in August, I would have, but things take time. So having that referral letter was really helpful, because then it meant that when I had to start taking estrogen, when I was back in Portugal, I could show that referral letter to my doctor, who was very understanding, because I don't know if she'd ever heard of PMDD before, but having that referral letter was really helpful. So there's that. Obviously it costs money, and I know that any kind of private healthcare, it's expensive. Different areas of the world have different ways of doing things. In the UK, we have the NHS, so a lot of, your healthcare is free, unless you're going to the dentist, I think. So trying to get a referral through the NHS can take months, sometimes even years. So that's why I did everything privately, because I was in the position to be able to. However, I know that that is not possible for everyone. So that's something you can do. There's loads of different groups and forums online. I was part of the IAPMD surgery Facebook group because I wanted to see how other people had been affected by surgery, whether it had worked for them. 99.9% of people who'd had the surgery I had said it was a game changer for them. So that was all I needed. But there are groups, there are people, there are Instagram pages. There's a really good Instagram community. I have an Instagram account, and I follow lots of really good Instagram accounts on there about PMDD. There is always ways to find the answers to the things you need. So I'm hoping that you have a supportive doctor, and having a diagnosis is helpful, not just because it will give you answers, but like I said, it'll help in the workplace, it will help with people around you. They can try and understand you a bit more. I know that with mental health, a lot of people cannot understand it unless they have experienced those issues themselves or been in a dark place mentally themselves. That's not to say that they don't care or that they're not nice. It's just really difficult to understand those feelings. Unlike a broken leg, which you can see and you can imagine the pain, and you can see how difficult it is for that person to get around. When everything's going on inside your head, some people just can't quite grasp how debilitating it really is. Then there's things that you can do to help your PMDD. It's not just this is it, I now have the diagnosis and I've just got to carry on the way I was. There's loads of things you can do to help. You don't have to have a hysterectomy like me. Firstly, food and drink. Don't drink alcohol. I know it tastes good, but it's not good for your brain and it can make PMDD worse. Same with caffeine. I would not drink caffeine in my follicular phase. So once I'd ovulated, I would cut out caffeine because it would just make it worse. It would make me more irritable and it wouldn't help. It also triggers migraines. I suffer from migraines annoyingly, so it's good to not have that. Processed food is just the devil for everything. We all know that, but we still consume it. I do. It's hard not to, it's convenient, especially when you're in that bad stage of your cycle. The last thing you want to do is rustle up food from scratch, but I do definitely recommend avoiding as much processed food, sugars, if you can. However, no one's perfect, so you do you. Having enough vitamins and minerals can be really helpful. The slightest imbalance in your gut can just really throw everything off. And talking about the gut is a whole different thing, because we all know, well, we don't all know, but we're starting to learn that the gut is basically like another brain inside our body. It kind of controls everything that's going on inside. So definitely that's linked to your diet as well. If you can treat your gut right, it's going to try and treat you right. I don't treat mine right, and it does not treat me right in return. But that's just my own demon battle that I insist on going through every day, because I'm not perfect, but I'm also not a dietitian. I'm not going to sit here and say what you should and shouldn't eat. These are just recommendations, and if you Google it, you will see them. Then there's exercise. Exercise makes you feel so good, but it's another one of those things that when you feel like crap, it's the last thing you want to do. Why on earth would I want to move my body when I don't even want to exist at the moment? Trust me, if you can just force yourself outside and walk for 5 minutes, it can help. Not always, but it can. Then there's drugs, and I'm not talking about recreational drugs. I'm talking about pharmaceutical ones that can help. Some antidepressants do help with PMDD. I accidentally stumbled upon one that I'm still taking now. I would like to eventually stop taking it, but at the moment I'm going through a lot this year with trying different medications, menopause, all that. I'm just going to leave it for now and continue taking it. The one I take is called venlafaxine. I didn't realise at the time when I was put on it back in 2021 that it's actually used as a helpful medication with PMDD. It definitely curbed a lot of my symptoms. Nothing gets rid of it. Like I said, it didn't get rid of it, but it did help curb them. So venlafaxine is something I take. It has really nasty side effects if you forget to take it. So as with a lot of antidepressants, they are a bit of a big commitment. You have to wait a while for them to work. And then if you want to stop them, you can't just stop because you are physically addicted. Don't know why I did that. It doesn't affect the mood. You are physically addicted. If I forget to take it, it's like I'm drunk, I'm slurring, I can't stand up properly. It's like I've got vertigo, I feel sick, nauseous, diarrhea. It's not nice, but it does help. Then there is contraceptives. I don't personally like that avenue because, like I said, I don't think that taking more hormones, this probably sounds so stupid, me saying, I don't think taking more hormones will help as she takes more hormones. It's different though. I don't have ovaries, so I have to have estrogen. And I know I could just have estrogen through food, but that wouldn't be as regulated as if the patch that I take every day. And I don't need to defend it. Listen, it's a very long-winded argument why I take it, but I'm taking it, all right? I'm doing that. Having a baby, as I said, if you want children, you could have a child, and that will numb it all for a while. And then there's menopause, but going through menopause is a whole nother ball game if you have PMDD, because the doctors will want to put you straight on HRT, and that involves progesterone if you are going through menopause naturally, and progesterone is no bueno. No one likes it. Your brain hates it. Oh no, I don't like you. So that's another one. My mom, and I keep referencing her because she's the only woman I know with PMDD who is going through the menopause naturally, had to do loads of research and fight with her doctor to get onto a good HRT dosage where, because you're supposed to, I mean, I don't know, I don't take it, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong. If you're watching this and you are doing normal HRT, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're supposed to take progesterone every month. Basically, you're meant to mimic your normal cycle, which if you have PMDD, you're like, I don't want a cycle, I want it to go. So firstly, no. Secondly, I found out through lots of forum searching that some doctors, it's not advised, it can be a bit risky, but it has helped a lot of people because you don't have to go through the hell of progesterone every month, is to take the progesterone every 2 or 3 months. Some take it every 6. Now, there's a risk in that. You're taking the progesterone to help your womb release the lining. If you don't release the lining, then you've got issues. I think it can cause uterine cancer. I'm not a doctor. This is just things that I have seen, but I'm fairly sure that it's not good to have a womb full of old lining just sitting around. It needs to come out, and you have to take progesterone to expel it if your body isn't producing it anymore. So once you're through menopause and that's all done and dusted and your ovaries have stopped sporadically pumping out hormones left, right and centre, then you can just have estrogen or nothing if you don't want it. Like I said, I'm taking it because I'm young. I don't want to have osteoporosis and things like that. So I'm taking it until probably I'm at least 60. And it's been a journey. I'm only 6 months into taking it, and maybe 5. Still trying to find the right level. There are risks because I have migraines and I'm young. But anyway, it's a toss-up between a rock and a hard place. Do you want to continue struggling with PMDD and endometriosis and your monster fibroid when you don't want children and never have? Or do you want to take synthetic estrogen with the risk of breast cancer and stroke and migraines, but you don't want to die every single month? It's hard. And I'm not making light of any of those conditions. They are scary and horrible and not what anyone wants. So those are the things that I know you can do. I really need to reiterate, it is not a hormone imbalance. Please do not let anyone tell you that PMDD is a hormone imbalance. Your hormones are not imbalanced. They are perfectly balanced. Your brain is just reacting incorrectly to your hormones changing, which they do all the time if you are having periods or perimenopause or menopause. Your hormones are regulated by your ovaries, and your ovaries are doing their own thing. Everyone has different length cycles. Some people have periods every 3 months because they have PCOS or other stuff going. There's loads of different things going on in our bodies. There's loads of different things going on in our bodies that can exacerbate the symptoms. So definitely, I know that knowing that I had PMDD was something I avoided acknowledging for a really long time because I'd seen my whole life what it had done to my mom, and I did not want that. But there came a point where I had to just finally admit, yes, I have it. Because PMDD, I've just waffled for ages. How do you get PMDD? Where does it come from? Do you just eat a bad batch of bread and it's contagious? No, it's not contagious unless you share the same genes with someone who carries it. Yes, it can be genetic. It can also be a trauma triggered by trauma, or a comorbidity with other conditions like ADHD, which is also genetic and triggered by trauma. It's all in the brain. Brains, they're annoying. And it's something that, like I said, affects everyone differently. And different stages of your life, it affects you differently as well. I didn't really notice it affecting me negatively until I entered my early 20s. And then everything just started to get harder and harder until last year when I finally just, let's just whip it out. So, you know what? Well done. If you made it this far, I feel like I just waffled and I don't even know what I spoke about. In my head, I had all these different things, and I'm going to try in the next video to be a little bit more concise, have more of a timeline. I think there was kind of a timeline here. But if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. I will try and answer them, or maybe do a whole video regarding certain things, because like I said at the beginning, when you have something that you live with day in, day out, it is a chronic condition. When you live with a chronic condition, you get used to it and you kind of just feel like everyone knows about it. So what's the use in talking about it? I'm just preaching to the choir. But that's not the case. And I really think everyone needs to know about PMDD. PMDD awareness is suicide prevention. And I'm going to edit this and I hope that it makes sense. If it's crap, I will never publish this video. And if I think, you know what, there is some useful nuggets, I will publish it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have found a little bit of useful information from this. And like I said, any questions, drop them in the comments and I will try and answer them.